Hello and welcome back to SimCast, the higher education simulation podcast. My name's Dr. Lawrence Hill and I am here with my regular co-host, Tony Jermy.
Hello everyone, welcome back to SimCast. And in today's episode, we thought we would talk a little bit about how we are using AI to work smarter, not harder as simulation faculty. So I think a little bit of a preamble here and a bit of kind of a disclosure. This isn't about using AI and fancy
Simulation solutions
and programs. It's about using large language models like ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever you've got at your disposal to make your job a little bit more effective and efficient.
Yeah, because we know how squeezed everyone is when it comes to all of the necessary admin and tasks associated with simulation. And as if that was part of the design of this episode, we are tight for time, and so we're going to squeeze this one into the next 17 and a half minutes.
We have always got enough time for a call to action.
Yes, we have. Go ahead, Tony. Fire away.
If you enjoyed the episode, please give us a like. Equally so, if you didn't like the episode, give us a dislike, but let us know in the comments why, because we're always keen to improve. To keep up to date with all things Sim, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check the notification bell. And SimCast is available on all popular streaming platforms.
And you know what as well? Of the three hacks that we're currently using AI for back of house to just make things easier and smoother in the work we do in simulation, if you've got other ones that you could add, please drop us a comment or get in touch and talk to us about how you're using AI in your institution back of house for simulation.
So we've covered AI before.
Yeah.
We did an episode way back when we first started the podcast where we both used ChatGPT to design a simulation scenario.
Yep.
And I think that's probably the most obvious way in which you could use a large language model as a simulation educator to help you with simulation is, I need to create a scenario. I don't know what to create. Can you help me out
and we were pretty AI naive at that point. We were just, oh, this is cool. And now we're kind of quite deeply ingrained in it. You and I both, use AI significantly.
Caveat, this is going out to potentially lots of people. Where would you frame yourself in terms of your use, knowledge, application of AI?
I would say probably advanced beginner.
I think that's a fair assumption.
Yeah, I think I'm probably going beyond just asking it routine information and asking it, setting it more kind of cross-matching analytical tasks.
And I think when you scratch past the surface and you realise what it can do, importantly because you have to put the effort in as well. Mm-hmm. That's when you can start to recognise its potential. Yeah. So we both use ChatGPT primarily.
Yep.
We both have access to Copilot. Mm-hmm. I think I'm just going to get it out there. I don't want to go do too much of a rant, but Copilot is like the runt of the litter. I think when it comes to AI, it's crap, to be quite honest with you.
There are problems with it, majorly, aren't there? Like the fact that it's supposed to be an integrated Microsoft model, but your frustrations with it are?
Yeah, well, all sorts of things. And this is going away from simulation, but if you're going to integrate it into an app like Outlook, for example, but it can't summarize your emails and make my job easier, what's the point?
Yeah,
so Microsoft do better. Apple do better. They've delayed their AI for a long time now, and actually the way they're going to make it better is bringing Google on board, which is sadly ironic for the largest tech company in the world.
Do you know what I think Apple did? I think they realised that Apple Intelligence was such a good title, they then just basically all went for coffee and forgot to actually do some development work.
Probably.
Because Apple Intelligence is just such a sweet name. But anyway, so how has your use of AI to write simulation scenarios moved on since we first started doing this?
I think it's my understanding about what AI can do. And again, just to kind of sort of frame where we're sitting with this, we are using large language models. There are specific types of AI that can do certain things, and there are companies that are using AI for simulation, as in simulated patients.
Yep.
So there are probably better solutions out there, but again, with you and I, we're a bit sort of limited with time. So we know ChatGPT works for a lot of the stuff we're doing. So if it isn't broken, don't fix it. I think it's probably important to say we've probably stretched it to the point of its capacity in terms of its free offering, and we both pay a subscription for the better version of ChatGPT, the unlocked version. For me, one of the powers of that is the amount of extra documents and files you can upload and help it learn things.
Yeah, and also the memory of all of the chats is actually really useful to me, because I go back and I recycle those and reuse them and develop them, and also the project and agent mode as well, which is handy for some of the things that I use it for. So I'd say
the first thing is go into whatever large language model you're using, whether it's Copilot, whether it's ChatGPT, go into the settings and have a play with it, because you can change everything from the way it produces its responses to how it learns. I think with the free version of ChatGPT, you can still have projects. And the good thing about projects is like a folder or a container, and you can keep all of the memory, if you like, within that project. So you can make it quite specific to simulation. But I started off with writing and designing simulations. So I'm staring at a blank screen thinking, I need to write a simulation for my simulation session some way off in the future, maybe tomorrow.
Way off in the future.
But how do I do that? And it's really good for doing that with the caveat of, and this is, I guess, why we come back to one of your concerns when we first covered it, that existential crisis of, is it going to take over my job? Absolutely not, because you need to fact check it. You need to check for accuracy. You need to make sure it's not hallucinating and making things up. Yeah,
so I think the way that I've probably developed my use of it in terms of writing scenarios is much more focused on the intended learning outcomes. So much more now I'm like, I've got to write a simulation event around this topic. These are the program learning outcomes. These are the module learning outcomes. Can you help create some, nice scaffolded learning outcomes for simulation? And it's really helpful for that, because that is what it was designed to do. It is a language model. It's really good at text. And so getting that bit of it right so that it's underpinned by robust outcomes is really useful. Standardization of writing simulation scenarios is good. And again, you can feed in. So I've designed a simulation template for simulation activity. You can feed that in and it can learn it within reason, how it visually appeals and how the large language model might read and interpret it might be different. But again, it can help output those things so you can copy and paste and put in, and again, it's working smarter, not harder. So the kind of scenario content of the kind of the course of the event, whatever it is really useful. But also in that is about creating the faculty-facing side of the document. That's I think another way that we can use it. So that's definitely how I've evolved. I've gone less from the actual implementation and more about the making my prep and planning better. It's my personal assistant to catch all of the things I would often forget, because I'm firstly imperfect by a long stretch of the imagination, but also I'm a busy academic. So those things that quickly get forgotten, things like routine emails that need to go out, creating a dashboard of activity, those things to make your organization of your simulation activity, if you're running the simulation or you're the simulation coordinator, for example, is so useful in terms of those things. Yeah, completely. So big advantages there. And another major way that I've been integrating AI into simulation is in the kind of the sort of back of house preparation of learners for simulation-based assessments. Okay. So one of the things that we know about simulation-based assessments, whether that's OSCE or something equivalent to an OSCE, is that they're high stakes and there's limited time for learners to prepare. We'll more than likely offer some kind of in-person live formative kind of mock event. But the learning from those events is often so rich because of the exposure to the scenario. So what me and a couple of people from the team have started doing is writing prompts for students and saying, hey, you could really do with familiarizing yourself with or practicing verbalizing, for example, the process of assessment or your clinical reasoning around this set of signs and symptoms and presentations. And writing prompts for students that we give them the prompt and say, use AI, plug this in, and then work through this simulated patient in the style of this OSCE in your own time so that you can rehearse. And it's just, it seems to be driving engagement. Students really like the opportunity to practice. So if you didn't have that tool at your disposal, how much time would it take to do those kind of things? What exactly? And how individualized can that be as well? So yeah, and to provide that kind of one-to-one, which is effectively what the experience the student gets, is to provide that across a cohort of 25, 45, 100 learners. You can just sort of start to imagine how big a labour saving that is back of house. I mean, with the caveat that test your prompts, does it actually create scenarios that you're confident in?
And that's the thing, isn't it? There's a little disclaimer at the bottom of ChatGPT that says ChatGPT can get things wrong. Please make sure you check them. And I guess because we're coming from an academia point of view where AI is so prevalent with how it can be misused with academic assessments, it kind of feels sometimes like we're not cheating, but I don't know, it's difficult, isn't it? Like I struggle sometimes with this dilemma of, am I working smarter, not harder, because I'm using this at my disposal? Or should I still be doing it the old-fashioned way? I probably shouldn't, because I'm just wasting a load of time and I could be much more resourceful. But it's getting that balance right. And the more I use it, the more I realise that if I'm going to have it as part of my daily workflow, I need to be even more vigilant than I ever have been with it, in terms of making sure it's factual and accurate, particularly if it's going to be potentially student-facing.
Yeah. No, I completely concur with that. That was essentially the summary point, wasn't it, of when we last talked about AI on this podcast? It's just the two of us.
So that hasn't changed.
That's not changed. Actually, natural intelligence, human intelligence, contextual checking, and also just thinking about sometimes the depth and the direction that an AI will go in if prompted is important. So we need to be mindful that we're not just saying, well, look, all you need is AI.
No,
because clearly that's not the case. But it does offer something which simulation educators really, many of us are harnessing. And as I said at the top of the show, if there are ways that you're harnessing simulation to facilitate your routine daily work, we want to hear about them, because we want to share them.
I think as well, for people who perhaps aren't harnessing it but don't know how, get in touch.
Yeah.
Because let's start that conversation about how it can be used. And I think if there's any deficit within your portfolio of work, whether that's you struggle a little bit with debriefing, or you can't, you don't know how to, not necessarily how to write a scenario, but when you come to writing a scenario, your mind goes blank, or your organisation and management is a little bit challenged because you don't have enough hours in the day. That's where it can help to fill in those gaps, to make us work smarter, not harder, but also just to increase that threshold, with the caveat of don't just over-rely on it. Don't do what the students do and ask it to write an assignment which comes out so polished.
But that's the thing, isn't it? It's the naive use which is problematic. The kind of more sophisticated thing is, I think of the outputs that I get from ChatGPT as having like the most responsive executive assistant that you could imagine. But they're not a subject expert.
No, and what's interesting, the more you use it, the more you can. We're talking about this off camera, so it might be worth mentioning. Is firstly, you can recognize when it doesn't quite get it right, and actually, but you can use its own learning to help problem solve that. And I've done that before, where I've gone down almost a rabbit hole to try and solve out what the problem is, and it will give you in the answers why it's struggling and failing. So it helps you understand how that large language model is processing that information and data more. And I think that's potentially useful. But the other thing we mentioned about was how our approach to interacting with it. Yeah. So when I first started using AI, I was like, I'm not going to say please to a bit of artificial intelligence, because but I've changed. I'm a lot more cordial now with how I approach.
I am. I describe my interactions as civil, definitely civil. Probably not overly polite, but certainly could you, rather than go and.
But also when it doesn't do it for whatever reason, when it hallucinates and makes things up, I'm like, come on.
You're
better than this.
Normally my command is, the prompt is like, nope, try again.
Not
quite right. Yeah, I mean, just by way of
no
example.
tea for you tonight.
Early bath. Yeah. No iPad before bed. Yeah,
I don't not feed my children.
But yeah, so like one of the tasks I set it was just a boring. This was a perfect task. I thought this would be absolutely bulletproof. I want you to I want to take this list of numbers and tell me how many 3s, how many 5s, and how many 7s there are in these lists of numbers. Kept getting it wrong. Like it kept getting it wrong.
I found when you try and overload it with too much stuff.
But this wasn't even. This was like literally maybe 60 numbers in a string. Tell me how many 7s, 5s, and 1s there are in this string. And it kept getting it wrong. And I knew how many. I knew that there were. And I was like, and total them up. And I knew that I needed to have, let's say, 60 outputs.
Do you know what the problem is? It's the ultimate groupie. It doesn't want to disappoint you, and what it does is instead of disappointing you, it will either, for example, not go into enough detail, or it will try and fabricate things so it gives you the answer that you're looking for. And sometimes, and that's the nuance, isn't it? Is understanding that sometimes you just have to do the correct thing, but not always the right thing to please you. And that's where it doesn't understand that human interaction, those nuances, those behaviours that we use to interact with.
Yeah, I mean, it is conditioned to be an answer model, isn't it? It's not a search engine, it's an answer engine. Yeah. And so it must give you an answer.
Anyway, we're pushed for time, so we're going to have to bring this one to a close. But what I would say is that, again, the caveat to this episode is whilst we've just primarily been talking about large language models, we do have some guests coming up where we're going to be looking at the other ways in which we use AI creatively in simulation, which is something we're both really looking forward to.
Indeed. So thank you for joining us for this episode of SimCast. We do hope you've enjoyed it, and we do want to hear from you about your novel back-of-house uses of AI. But thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.